The views and opinions expressed on America's Workforce Union podcast and its digital media channels are solely those of the speakers and do not necessarily represent the views and opinions of the producers or sponsors.
Welcome to the America's Workforce Radio Podcast, the flagship production of the American Workers Radio and Podcast Network, where organized labor and its never-ending fight to protect the rights of the American worker come first. Now, presented by LIUNA, Laborers International Union of North America. Here's your host, Ed Flash Ferentz.
A win for the trades in New York. Meanwhile, California's governor trying to negotiate what AI can do to the future workforce. And today on the show, the story of Taylor Dobson, from fast food to the building trades. Welcome to the Tuesday, June 2nd edition of America's Workforce, where we're available on at least 5 platforms, including YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Pandora. Well, today is a Tuesday. It's Trades Day here on America's Workforce, and we are going to talk about the journey of Taylor Dobson. Who's Taylor Dobson? Well, Taylor is a 26-year-old native of Joliet, Illinois, and a first-year Carpenter apprentice with Carpenter's Local 174. She's currently working with Power Circle Construction on a solar farm project, and she's going to talk about that. And speaking of the Carpenters, that local was chartered back on April 17th of 1897. Today, with the leadership and support of the Mid-American Carpenters Regional Council and the United Brotherhood of Carpenters and Joiners of America, they represent about 2,500 skilled, trained, and professional union carpenters in Illinois, primarily around the Chicago area. Now, Taylor's journey, I love to talk about young people who really find their path in life, and she worked in fast food management. Didn't like it. She's going to talk about it. You know, the long hours and low pay. Well, there's an organization called Hire 360. You might want to Google that. And here's the website for Chicago's Hire 360. It's hire360chicago.com. After she connected with Hire 360, and that is basically a pre-apprenticeship program, and they recruit candidates for I believe it's a 9-week pre-apprenticeship program, which prepares individuals for the trades. And she liked it. And now she's working on that solar farm. It's really a cool story. And I'll tell you, it's never too late. I mean, she's still young, obviously, 26 years old, but there's a lot of young people in high school not knowing what they're going to do. Should they go to college? And then they concern themselves about the college debt. Well, we talk about that a whole lot on the show. And right now, there's so many opportunities in the trades all across America. So Taylor's story, the story of Taylor Dobson, will be next here on America's Workforce. But right now, got to take a brief look into the world of labor. This segment brought to you by Boyd Watterson Asset Management. We're talking on $38 billion of assets under advisement, serving the needs of Taft-Hartley funds, corporations, public funds, endowments, foundations, as well as religious organizations. The Westchester, New York Board of Legislators has unanimously passed the Westchester County Prevailing Wage Act, which guarantees construction workers on county leased properties the same standard union wages they would earn on county-owned job sites. Now, under existing law, workers on privately owned land leased by the county and directly supporting county operations can be denied prevailing wage protections because the law does not classify such construction as a public work. Now, the new law closes this gap. Got to do a shout out here to Local 21 Plumbers and Steam Fitters member Sean Carey. He was instrumental in this, and he said, as we sign these bills, we commit to shared prosperity. When workers thrive, families thrive and grow stronger, and our democracy works better for everyone involved. California's Governor Gavin Newsom has issued an executive order directing state agencies to study and explore ways to navigate the effects of artificial intelligence disruptions on the workforce. According to the governor's office, the order mobilizes state agencies, labor experts, economists, universities, as well as industry leaders to develop new policies, gather data, and identify early warning signs of workforce disruption while ensuring workers share in the gains created by AI-driven productivity. These new proposals may include strengthen AI-specific severance standards, unemployment insurance, and data tracking to allow for faster state response times, as well as worker ownership business models and AI training programs. By the way, this order is the first of its kind. In a statement, Governor Newsom said, "This moment demands that we reimagine the entire system, how we work, how we govern, how we prepare people for the future, and that work is starting right here in the Golden State." Boy, that's one to watch. Congratulations to Governor Newsom on this. Meanwhile, shares for Intuit recently fell about 20%. Why? It all followed news of slower than anticipated TurboTax revenue and plans to cut thousands of jobs. While overall revenue numbers were encouraging, the underwhelming performance of TurboTax, one of the company's premier products, reignited the market's concerns about impacts of artificial intelligence on the tax filing service. So, as part of Intuit's efforts to adapt to these effects, the firm plans to reduce headcount by roughly 3,000 workers and invest their cost savings into artificial intelligence products. And the company hopes this move will make them a faster, leaner, and more focused company. You're going to hear a lot of that from companies. And that's primarily why Governor Newsom is doing what he's doing in the state of California. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, the story of Taylor Dobson, from fast food to the building trades. Her story next on America's Workforce.
You're listening to America's Workforce with Ed Flash Ferens.
It takes LiUNA to build North America's infrastructure. From roads and bridges to schools and skyscrapers, the men and women of LiUNA, the Laborers International Union of North America, build the projects we depend on. From constructing the Freedom Tower on the site of the former World Trade Center to untangling Washington, D.C.'s congested interstate, LiUNA members do the work that matters. Find out what it takes to be built by LiUNA at liuna.org. That's liuna.org.
There is unity and strength for workers.
We are the USW.
We are the USW.
The United Steelworkers.
The largest industrial union in North America.
We represent 850,000 members in the U.S., Canada, and the Caribbean.
We work in metals,
rubber,
chemicals,
paper,
oil refining,
atomic energy, and the service sector.
We are steelworkers, standing strong and fighting for what's right.
America's Workforce appreciates our sponsor, the Columbus Central Ohio Building and Construction Trades Council, who represents more than 18,000 workers from 19 affiliated local unions and district councils.
America's Workforce is presented by the Laborers International Union of North America. Feel the power right now at liuna.org. America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the United Steelworkers. You can find more at usw.org. America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the Communication Workers of America. You can find more at cwa-union.org. This segment of the show is brought to you by the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way Employees Division of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. For more information, please visit bmwe.org.
Now, back to America's Workforce. Here's Ed Flash Ferens.
And remember, you can check us out on Facebook or follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter. That would be AWF Union Podcast, AWF Union Podcast. Journey into the trades. A lot of people in America are doing just that because, well, number one, there's a lot of opportunities. Number two, you can make a whole lot of money in the trades. A lot of building going on in America. Let's go to the Chicago area right now. And joining us as our featured guest today is Taylor Dobson. Taylor is a first-year Carpenter apprentice with Carpenter's Local 174. And I'll tell you, here's a local that has a rich history. They were chartered back on April 17th of 1897. And today they represent nearly 2,500 skilled, trained, and professional union carpenters. Their jurisdiction covers a big chunk of Illinois. I guess Taylor wants to be part of that. Taylor, welcome to America's Workforce. Thanks for joining us. Talk to me about why you specifically decided to take this journey. Everybody's got a different story. Why don't you share your story with our listeners here on America's Workforce? Go ahead.
Yeah. Good morning, Flash. So my biggest reason for wanting to join a trade in the first place, I've always loved working with my hands. I'm definitely a hands-on kind of girl. I love building, love making things. I love looking at things and being like, I did that. You know what I mean? It's always been a career choice that I've definitely wanted to pursue. But up until recently, I hadn't considered it as an option because it felt so hard to get into it. But once I found that there were programs to help you get into the Carpenters Union, because before becoming an apprentice, I had absolutely no idea how to start, where to start, who to talk to. Once I found that there are people who can help you network into that kind of thing, I was all aboard. I always wanted to work with wood, always wanted to be a carpenter. So once I found out there are programs like mine, Hire 360, that's the one I went through. They absolutely are like invaluable for helping you get a jump start into the trades. You don't need it. Obviously, if you have that experience, if you know people, that's all the better for you. But they help me so much with not only getting into the trades, but getting into a union.
Well, the old line is not what you know, it's who you know. And it's better to have an organization like Hire 360. Let's shout out that website here for our listeners, hire360chicago.com, hire360chicago.com. Taylor, I understand that I guess you were in the fast food industry. Talk to me about that time in your life, which is kind of crazy at times. But as far as the frustration in that kind of most likely led you into where you are today, if you don't mind, take me back to that time.
Of course. So everyone knows how awful working fast food is. Obviously, when you're a teenager, you start out. My very first job was Dunkin Donuts. Hated it, but it made me realize how hard of a worker I am. A lot of places take that for granted, especially in fast food. You'll go from job to job trying to find something better, and that was my biggest frustration. Sometimes you'd make a little more money, and then they wouldn't appreciate the hard work you were doing. Sometimes you earn less money, and then they wouldn't shut up about how much they needed you. But there was never the benefits. They didn't take care of you, you know what I mean? And it felt like I was at a dead end. They wanted me to go into management. I was a shift lead. They were trying to get me up to assistant manager. And I was like, I can't do this. Like, I need a real career. And that's I was telling them the whole time. I was like, I'm trying to get into a union. Like, once I'm gone, I'm gone. But they never tried to keep me. It's like, you can't compete with that. You can't compete with union benefits. So they weren't even going to try.
Right. No, I get it. I used to work at a McDonald's many years ago, and I totally understand. That was really, really rough work. My dad was a lifelong steel worker, and he said, when you turn 18, you can't work in the steel mill until you're 18. He said, when you turn 18, you're going to work with me in the shop. And I was like, okay, Dad, what am I going to say? No. And so I worked there, and my pay tripled. Okay.
Oh, yep.
My pay tripled. And I'm like, wow, now I understand. I get this. And then obviously I got the union benefits. I worked summers and I went to college, but I call that the union difference. And I'm sure you experienced that pretty quickly when you take me to the time when you decided to get involved with the Carpenters. I'm sure they laid out all the benefits and the wages. What was your reaction when you found that out?
Absolutely. So Hire 360 had called me out of nowhere. They said, we have an opportunity for you. We need you to, this would be on Monday. This was Friday. They were like, on Monday, we need you at the local union hall to be a carpenter. I was like, oh my God. I was like, this is all I've ever wanted. So obviously I was like so excited. I said yes right away. Once I got to the union hall, they were giving me a whole bunch of papers to tell me the benefits and all that. And I was like, I had known it was good, but seeing it for yourself, like the pension, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. It was was unreal. And I was like, they want me to be a part of this?
Hire 360 Illinois, I guess they more or less work with local leaders to make sure people like yourself get involved in the trades. And I understand that it's a pre-apprenticeship program. Can you kind of give me some more information on that connection, how they actually work, what you get out of it, and how it led you to 174, the Carpenters Union?
Absolutely. So with the pre-apprenticeship, you can be partnered with Hire 360 and not even go through the pre-apprenticeship. But the second I got with Hire 360, I let my case manager know, like, I need to do this pre-apprenticeship. The pre-apprenticeship, it's a lot of math prep and things like that for aptitude tests. We tour a lot of training facilities for different locals, which was really helpful. You get to talk to actual tradespeople, see how things actually are, and that was really invaluable. As far as getting into the specific local that you're looking for, you're assigned a case manager, and you keep them up to date on what trades you're interested in. And those case managers, in turn, keep you up to date on what locals around you and what different kinds of trades are open for applications or are going to be open for applications, because they have the connections. They get communications on whether or not they're even going to be opening. And that is a game changer, because I don't know if anyone listening has tried to apply for a union before, but they don't give you notifications on when they open. Once they're open for a little bit, you don't get notified. And if you miss it, you miss it.
This only can happen because good government and good elected leaders invest in workers, invest in jobs. And this is part of the Illinois Works Jobs program, which was created by your governor over there in Illinois, Governor Pritzker. It was a $45 billion capital plan to make sure that we have a good workforce, a diverse workforce. Speaking of which, when you got involved in the trades, mainly male-dominated, I'm just wondering how that connection was for you. Everybody gets treated differently, and there was a time, I've had many people on this show, Taylor, going back to the 70s, and when a woman got involved in the trades, oh my God, she was like, what are you doing here? Why aren't you at home, raising babies? That whole culture has changed. Can you tell us how you adapted to what has changed here? How the workforce is today, especially in the trades?
Yes, absolutely. So growing up, when I was in high school, I actually took woodshop classes and I loved it. But the culture was kind of like that. Obviously, it's teenagers, it's not grown men, but you still feel alienated, you know what I mean? And that's a big reason I didn't pursue it right off the bat. I'd say recently that's definitely shifted a good amount. When going into the trades, because I remember I had a friend, she was a carpenter also, but in a different state, and she wasn't union, and she said she had a lot of issues. But I tried not to let it deter me from what I wanted. And I would say taking that first step is always the scariest. Once you get on a job site, you see it's all men. Honestly, it can feel kind of terrifying. You don't know how they're going to perceive you, what they could say to you. But once you get onto there, I want any woman to know that once you get on there, yeah, they can be kind of crude. It can be it's rough work, you know what I mean? But other than that, it's gonna be like basically every other job you've had. If you're willing to work hard, then you shouldn't be afraid. You shouldn't worry about what people think you should be doing.
Taylor, I have to ask you, did Hire 360, did they prep you for those moments that culture thing where you just talked about? Did they bring that up in the 9-week course?
Absolutely. So there were even specific days just going over the culture of being on site, the different people you're going to interact with. We even had talks with actual tradespeople, their experiences. So going in onto a job site, I was prepared for a multitude of things.
So when you were done with the 9 weeks, did you go right into the union then? Is that how it works?
So when I was done with the 9 weeks, it was not immediate me getting into the union. It is definitely dependent on once applications are accepted, once applications are over. But honestly, in my case, for me, it was totally out of left field because I hadn't even known they were open for applications. I didn't go through that process. What they did with me is totally different. So it honestly depends on the local that you go through. And it honestly depends on what opportunities your case manager has for you. You have to be prepared to be on a waiting list, I would say, for a little bit. But as long as you keep reaching out, they're going to find something for you, whether it's going straight into a local or whether it's just doing some work for a specific trade.
Taylor, I have to take a quick break here. Are you able to do some more talking to me here on America's Workforce? I got a couple more questions. I want to specifically zero in on what you're doing right now. I understand you're working with Power Circle Construction on a solar farm project. So can we spend a couple more minutes with you then?
Of course.
Our featured guest right now is Taylor Dobson. She is a first-year Carpenter apprentice with Carpenter's Local 174 out of Chicago, and she got through there with a program, a great program called Hire 360. And here's a website you want to go to, especially those in the Midwest listening right now, hire360chicago.com. Back with more from Taylor Dobson right after this on America's Workforce. Don't go away.
This is America's Workforce. More shows available at awfradio.com.
It takes LiUNA to power North America with affordable energy. The men and women of LiUNA, the Laborers International Union of North America, have the skills needed to build and maintain oil, natural gas, nuclear, solar, and wind projects that are shaping America's energy future. From new energy tech to retrofitted facilities, LiUNA members do it all. Find out what it takes to be powered by LiUNA at liuna.org. That's liuna.org.
The Iron Workers Great Lakes District Council, consisting of 8 ironworker local unions in West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Michigan. We build the skylines and bridges along the Great Lakes. With more work than ever before, the Great Lakes District Council is actively searching out the next great iron worker. Whether it's building the next Intel plant or constructing a bridge to safely connect our great cities along the lake. So join the Ironworkers Great Lakes District Council today. Find out how and learn more about the council by visiting iwdistrictcouncil.com. Founded in 1887, the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way Employees Division of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters represents the employees responsible for tirelessly constructing and maintaining the national rail system in America. For more than a century, the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way Employees has proven they have what it takes to protect its members and meet the ever-changing challenges of the rail industry. Today, the BMWED continues to fight for job security, fair wages, better benefits, and safer, more modern work environments. For more information, please visit bmwe.org. America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, where you can find more at teamster.org.
America's Workforce is sponsored in part by Boyd Watterson Asset Management, LLC. Find out more about our investment solutions tailored to meet the needs of Taft-Hartley funds at boydwatterson.com.
America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers. You can find more at ifpte.org. America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the Ironworkers. You can find more at ironworkers.org.
America's Workforce Radio is sponsored in part by the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades, District Council 6, representing painters, glazers, drywall finishers, and sign and display industry workers. They remind you that belonging to a union is your right as an American.
Now, back to Ed Flash Ferens with America's Workforce.
And don't forget, you can check us out on at least 5 platforms. That includes YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Pandora. And when you get an opportunity, here's what you do. Just sign up and receive our shows on a regular basis and give us a rating. We always appreciate those 5-star ratings, so please keep them coming. Taylor Dobson is our featured guest today. She is our featured guest on Trades Day every Tuesday and Thursday. We focus on a specific trade today. It's the Carpenters out of Chicago, Local 174 Union. It's been around since 1897. Boy, that's a long history. Now, Taylor is a 26-year-old native of Joliet, first-year carpenter apprentice with 174, and she's currently working with Power Circle Construction on a solar farm project. She got there because of the program called Hire 360, hire360chicago.com, which is a 9-week pre-apprenticeship program. Taylor, I want to ask you more about the program before we talk about what you're doing right now. How many people were in that class? Was it difficult for you to get into that class? And I'm just wondering, I'm sure there's a lot of people listening right now saying, I want to be the next Taylor Dobson. So give me some information on that class. And you said you were very lucky to go through it. Lucky because you were in fast food management before that, and obviously a big change here with the union difference, as I call it. But what about that class size?
Absolutely. So the class size was, I would say, about 24 people. Wasn't massive, but I think they did say it was bigger than the last cohort they did. As far as getting into the pre-apprenticeship, I heard back fairly quickly. Once I put in the application for Hire 360, they got me in, honestly, pretty quickly, but there was a little bit of a wait before orientation. I'd say that was probably maybe the biggest hurdle, is waiting those few weeks before your orientation. Once you're in, though, they give you all the tools you need, especially if you're worried about anything. If you're worried about gas money, anything like that, transportation, they will help you out to make sure that you have that opportunity for the pre-apprenticeship. Obviously, there's an interview beforehand just to make sure this is something you're serious about. You also do get paid for this. They pay you at the pre-apprenticeship. So that's huge. They don't want just anyone being in there for that reason alone.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's got to be a game changer for a lot of people. Taylor, I have to ask you, now that you are working with the Carpenters and you went through Hire 360, are you now the spokesperson for Hire 360 saying, hey, if I can do it, you can do it? I'm sure there's more positions that need to be filled. What do you think?
I honestly would absolutely say I'm a big spokesperson for Hire 360. Even on site, I have journeymen come up to me asking me, they'll see the Hire 360 sticker on my hard hat. They'll be like, what is that? I've never heard of that. And they'll get the whole spiel about it. I'll be talking to them for at least like 10 minutes about this whole thing, and they'll be so flabbergasted about it because the pre-apprenticeship they went through would have been completely different. I was talking to one journeyman. He said he earned like $30 a week in his pre-apprenticeship. Huge difference from what I was earning, and they don't get the help that I got. When you go through Hire 360, they help you so much. It's honestly, it feels like, what's the catch? You know what I mean?
Now, you're working with Power Circle Construction on a solar farm project. Talk to me about that. What are you actually doing on that?
So working with Power Circle, the first few days, I would say, was a lot of laying out the pile. It's a lot of beams that you're putting up in this. It was a dead cornfield. You needed buggies to get back and forth. It's just such a large cornfield. And then a lot of it starting out was basic stuff. As an apprentice, they have you do what you can't mess up or what you don't need the certifications for. I was doing a lot of assembling pieces, assembling clamps. I was putting on pile caps. I was doing all of the measurements, they call them reveal heights, for the pile that was being driven into the ground. So you can imagine this massive cornfield. There's hundreds and hundreds of pile out there, and I'm just getting down on my knees, marking every single one. After that, it got to be more physical. Obviously, it's manual labor. Once the pile was driven, we were putting up tubing and having to shove that tubing in the correct spots. It's all having to level the pile caps. It's a lot of specifics, but obviously you have a journeyman with you every step of the way, so you don't feel like you're just left in the dust. It's very interesting work, but it is very dependent on the weather. That is one thing. If you get into solar, it's very dependent on the weather. If it's raining, you're still going to work, but if it's raining too hard and you can't even walk anymore on that muddy ground, then sometimes you just have to they'll tell you we got to cut our losses and just head out.
Now, do you have any idea how long you'll be on this project?
It actually finished up, I would say maybe a week ago. We were on there for maybe 3 or 4 months, but we were having some difficulties pile driving. If we didn't have those difficulties, it would have been done in maybe 3 months.
So what's the next step? Where do you think you'll be working next?
When I was working with Power Circle Construction, they told me pretty early on that they were a big fan of me and my work ethic. So he asked me if I wanted to go with him on the next job site that he's doing. I think it's going to be in Barrington. I'm still waiting a little bit on the specifics of that, but it is another solar field.
Oh, yes. They got you nailed down on, no pun intended. They got you nailed down at the Carpenters Union on solar right now. So you are a first-year carpenter apprentice. How long is that program at 170? Is it like a 4-year or a 5-year program?
Yeah, so at Local 174, it is a 4-year program right now. Obviously, first year, and I'll be on my second set of classes. You have 1 week of classes every quarter. I'll be on my second session of classes once it hits July, and that's when I'll learn scaffolding. I know 174 is huge on scaffolding, so that will be definitely important for me.
Now, Taylor, I have to throw this at you. You're a woman. There's a lot of women that don't get involved in the trades because eventually, well, maybe they think about starting a family. There's maternity benefits, which a lot of unions are working out right now. I got to salute the iron workers for being the lead on that some years back. I've heard this so many times. We've attracted women into the trades, but then we can't keep them for what I just said. Now, I don't know what your future is like, Taylor, but you've got to probably have that in the back of your mind going forward. What do you think?
I have definitely heard about that. Going into the trades, when I was talking to my friend, she was like, you need to be careful going into the trades, especially over where she lives. They don't have any maternity leave. They don't have anything set up to make it easier for women who plan to get pregnant. That's technically not a worry for me. That doesn't seem to be something in my future, but it's like a fundamental human right at that point. I know, obviously, in the past, there weren't nearly enough women in the trades to not even have to consider it, but it wasn't a big thing. Like when you go to a union meeting, that's not what they think they're going to be talking about. But just with it being women being so much more common in the trades now, I think that's definitely something that needs to be addressed. I know they are addressing it, but I would say to any women who are trying to get into the trades and who are worried about that, I would say not to let it hold you back. Obviously, they're not going to make you do anything I don't want to say obviously. I would assume they wouldn't make you do anything that's unsafe for you as a pregnant woman while you're on the job site. I know harnesses can be an issue. Harnesses aren't usually rated for pregnant women when your belly gets too big. But other than that, I feel like just out of respect for you and your body, I feel like they would not have you doing things that are too dangerous for you. I don't know how the leave would be, but considering how good all the other benefits are in the unions right now, I feel like it wouldn't be something that they would try and screw you over on.
Well, the times have changed. The culture has changed. And we're seeing a shift right now. And I got to salute the Illinois, too. In fact, last year, I know they were the hosts for the Tradeswomen Build Nations. Chicago was Tradeswomen Build Nations conference. And that issue has come up with that organization many, many times. And Taylor, you're 26. You got a whole life ahead of you. Enjoy what you're doing right now. And whatever you decide to do, you're going to be fine because you're involved in a union, and a very, very powerful union, I might add, the Carpenters Union. So I want to thank you so much for joining us here on America's Workforce. Is there anything else you want to say to our audience before we leave you and so you can get back to work?
I would say don't put yourself down. You ever heard of a self-fulfilling prophecy? Don't say, oh, I couldn't be the one doing that, especially women out there. Don't say, oh, that couldn't be me. I couldn't do that. Maybe you think it's too hard of work. As long as you are willing to work hard, you'll prosper. You'll succeed. As long as you get there early, you're willing to work hard, and as long as you're giving 100%, I feel like there's always going to be room for you. So don't let yourself hold yourself back.
Taylor Dobson, our featured guest here on America's Workforce today. She's a first-year Carpenter apprentice with Carpenter's Local 174 out of Chicago, and she got there through their Hire 360 program. Those of you listening right now, you might want to check them out. Hire360chicago.com. And that'll be it for another edition of America's Workforce. Tomorrow, the Ohio AFL-CIO. Until then, all of you have a safe and wonderful day.
That concludes another episode of the America's Workforce Radio Podcast. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe so you never miss a show. America's Workforce is a production of Labor Tools and BMA Media Group. Find out more information online at labortools.com.